tuning in to WDRB Media, the voice of the community, the only station giving you double the information and inspiration. You're listening to Versatile Radio, and I'm your host, Carlos Parks. I'm the owner of Versatile Real Estate Group, a real estate brokerage in Jamestown, North Carolina, located at 804B West Main Street. We can be reached at www.weareversatile.com or call us at 336-307-3789. Our show today is sponsored by Characters Go Round. Disney is where the dreams come true. We bring the fun to you. They can be reached at www.charactersgoround.com. They provide characters at children's parties. All right. Today we are joined by our special guest, Mr. Melvin Farmer. So Melvin is having some technical difficulties over here. All right. So I'll tell you, I'll tell you back. I'll tell you a little bit about Melvin, right? So Melvin has a very unique background, very unique story. I will let him tell you more about it. He's come from humble beginnings. He's come through a lot, right? He's lived through a lot. He survived a lot. But now he is a tax preparer. He is right now, as we speak with him today, he's in the Jackson Hewitt office in Los Angeles, California, somewhere. But Melvin, won't you tell the people how you went from being a tax burden to a tax preparer?
Well, I started off playing sports at a young age, 11, 12, 13, 14. But I was also playing sports at the park where the Crips were basically formed along with Raymond Washington. And I started and made wrong choices and became a juvenile delinquent. And by the time between the ages of 1971 to 75 in a 4-year juvenile span before I turned 18, I was embarking on my journey to where I end up doing at this present moment over 30-some years of incarceration on and off in my life. I ended up with 40 arrests by the time of 18. By the time 2000 came around, I had about 8 prior prison terms. And I
Did
just
you
kept
say 40 arrests by the age of 18?
Yes. Wow. Back then, they still believed in rehabilitation, whereas now these youths get punished. They never could do or emulate the things that were going on back then. Carjacking, where you get a life sentence now. That was a GTA. Murder between the ages of 14 and 18 only carried a maximum of 4 years with a 2-year continuance. Home invasions had never even been thought of. It was just a simple robbery. You get cited out. Getting caught with a gun, they give it back. Having a tattoo where you get 10, 20. Gun laws. So they never could emulate and get away with the things that were going on back then. But later in life, God didn't shut the door on me. I've had 2 life sentences where man has given me a life sentence, but God has let me through the back door to let me out to where I'm able to be here. And now through my journey and at this destination and at this point in time, God put me on a show, a Christian show. And the lady said, Melvin, I read that you're just trying to make your mother happy because your mother's never been able to tell nobody. My son's going to work in her life.
Wow.
And so I just got off an 83-year sentence where I'm still on parole for 20 years out of Georgia for 3 counts of attempted murder on law enforcement. And that's when my mother said, I don't want you to die in prison while I'm out here one way or the other. And why don't you just change your life? First time she's ever said that. And
right.
On this show,
So hold up, Melvin. Hold up. Let us go pay some bills real quick, right? And then we're gonna return, right? I'm guessing that portion is how you were a tax burden. So now I want to learn more about how you became a tax preparer. When we come back, we will continue our discussion with Melvin Farmer. You are listening to Versatile Radio, and I'm your host, Carlos Parks. You're tuned in to WDRB Media, the voice of the community, the only station giving you double the information and inspiration. We'll be right back after this break. Pause. Okay, so now I can edit it, right? I figured out how to edit. I can edit this little piece out and then go back to the next piece, right? So that's the short segment. That's the 5-minute segment. So now we're gonna go into a 10-minute segment. Then you can really, you can give your spiel.
Now we'll go to tax prepared.
Yeah, yeah. All right. All right. So are you ready?
Yep.
All right. Welcome back to WDRB Media, the voice of the community, and those streaming live through free TuneIn Radio app and through iHeartRadio. You're listening to Versatile Radio, and I'm your host, Carlos Parks. If you're just tuning in, we're talking to Melvin Farmer. We're learning how he went from becoming a tax burden to becoming a tax preparer. In the first half, he talked about, when he was a tax burden, and I'm guessing that was being in criminality, being your life in the criminal life, right? You were a tax burden, being that the
I never paid tax
for you. Explain that. What's this tax burden thing about, Melvin?
Well, I never paid taxes before in my life, and I was a burden to the taxpayer, which all incarcerated men are. The taxpayers pay for their incarceration. So I wasn't a taxpayer. I was a tax burden. In fact, I've never seen a W-2 form or none of these forms or anything that I see now in my life. So I went from a tax burden to a tax preparer, to where a lady I never will name, Miss Flo, we were doing a Christian show. And she said, Melvin, you have too much sense I think you could be a tax preparer. And I've also seen where your mom said she just wants you to be able to say that her son went to work. She said, I'm going to stand up for you. I think you could do this. And I'm going to stand up for you, regardless of your record, because here in California, you can't even live by yourself because they do a background check, not on your credit, but on your arrest record. So if you have an arrest record, you cannot move into no housing or nothing. You always have to be dependent on somebody.
Wow.
So she took a chance. I went to the class. I went through 26 courses in a 30-day period, got my CTEC credentials. Had to go through where they say you can check the box and say, I've been arrested, and that be the end of it. That's not true. When I checked the box to say I had been arrested prior, it opened up a can of worms where they started asking me about incidents that happened in 72, 75, 78, 81, and here it is 2023. But they say they didn't turn the door on me. They told me what to do. And that's why I end up here now on Saturdays and Sundays. I sit in here alone where they trust me to get information from citizens and not to compromise it. I've learned the game a little bit because this is a game where taxes changes so much that you have to stay on course. And like earlier today, we were talking about every time you call me, I'm at work or at this facility, and that's because the taxes change. It's a seasonal job, and you have to stay on top of it because every day the IRS and the government are making changes. Like right now, our tax season has been extended from April filing deadline, April the 18th to be exact, till we go into May because of the weather. They declared our state a disaster to where we have the extension. So therefore, we just trying to get the information out because they cut down on the refunds that you get, from the COVID money and stimulus and so forth. That's over with now. So a lot of people are getting a reduction in their tax returns. We had a gas mileage thing that they didn't know if they were going to tax it or not. And so we just keep forth like that. And I've been doing pretty good.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you something about the taxes, right? I'm guessing it changes state to state. So if you you have your license in California, of course, right? Could you go to Vegas, like Nevada or whatever, and do
You
taxes?
can do taxes from any state uh, all you do is we'll have to go by, like in Texas, they don't do state taxes, Florida. But we have a program set up called a profiler that allow us to do any taxes in any state, pretty much in the United States. In fact, all the United States. So it's not just local or state, it's national and on a global level. I work with Jackson Hewitt. And so we're capable of filing taxes anywhere across the United States.
Did you just say Texas doesn't have a state tax?
Florida, quite a few doesn't charge state taxes.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's new. So
Yeah.
I mean, like it's tax season, so everybody's getting their taxes done right now,
But
including
see,
myself.
but that's federal. Everybody's gonna get taxed by the federal government. Those
Okay,
are the
got
ones
it, got
that
you.
cover everybody. But
All
when
right,
it
so you
comes
can't
to
afford
state,
that.
local taxes, you have, I think, 21 states, or therefore, to where I might be 11, but either way it go, you do not always get state taxes applied to you because the state does not have. I know Texas is not a file you take state taxes. Florida doesn't do it that I know of. Those are
Okay,
the main two, but nah, you don't necessarily get your state refund, but you're gonna always get federally taxed, regardless. No matter if
got
that money ship hands, it's bartering. You can get it through occurred methods. That's with a cash. You can get it to where you get a 1090, a K1. That's where you are getting credit card cancellation of debt. And that's why it's important to go every day. You got a 1099 form, you got a 1098T, that's for the student. You have a 1099 NEC, self-employed, IHS home, a Uber, taxiing, selling food. It's a philanthropy and a list of documents, and that determines the price of your tax preparation when you're
okay,
doing it with Jackson Hewitt, HR Block. They go by what forms have to be filed, and therefore
okay.
that determines your tax preparations.
So I got a question. As a real estate agent, as a returning citizen, because I don't mention that in my bio, but like yourself, I'm a returning citizen, and I had to go through a little bit more, right? As a fiduciary, they consider us a fiduciary because we're trusted with some some very sensitive
So
information.
very vital information that could lead to
Exactly right.
identity theft, stealing.
Uh-huh.
We got their
Yeah.
bank accounts. All that stuff has come around in the fraud games because a lot of people don't understand identity theft from fraud. There's a big difference. I used to be in the
Okay.
game.
So
Identity theft is when you take that social security card, birth, date of birth, their driver's license number, and so forth, because a lot of people don't understand that it's numbers that dictate a computer, not letters. That's why they got to have your address,
okay.
number, phone number, email, and so forth. And
So
it's a big difference when it comes to that.
So let me ask you something, right? Being that like you've been on the other side of the coin, right? Like me, right? When I came into this world, having been on the other side, I see things a lot differently, right, than my peers, right? So do you feel like being that you came from a whole nother world, right? Where like scams, right? You knew, long con and short. So did you feel like being coming to this other side that you see a little clearer than the average tax professional, right? Because they don't have the street savvy. Does it help you? Do you think?
Well, let me put it like this. I'm compassionate about what I do because it's simple things to where basically the establishment, the government hide information from, you put it in a book, a black can never read it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
Yep.
what I get appreciation out of is it's a difference between getting money and and I know where you hustle it and know you can get money every day, whether hustling for it, taking it, or whatever, taking that penitentiary chance, 50-50. But when you earn this money,
Yeah.
I earn it. It gives you a self satisfaction to where I might not get 500-600 a week, but it feel like 5, 6, 7,000 dollars. And also
Okay.
because of my ex experience and being in the frog game with some of the best, that helps me understand the terminology, whereas a lot of people would. But with
Okay.
me, I have to sit at this computer and actually see when we go to school. I can't, like a normal, like they might say, uh, you have a W-2 form. How many W-2s do you do? They have a 1098 and stuff. You can't just tell me to where I could visualize that because I've never seen it. So when they go to explaining the difference with me, I must see it. But I'm
Okay.
one that once I do see it, I come
Your
to the
visual learn.
common solution and I have the common sense to go like virtual currency, dealing
Okay.
in Bitcoin
All right.
coins and
Hold
all that type of stuff.
Hold up, Melvin. We got to go pay some bills. After the break, we'll continue our discussion with Melvin Farmer, um, ex gangbanger turned businessman, right? Tax preparer. You're tuned in to WDRB Media, the voice of the community, the only station giving you double the information and inspiration. Don't go anywhere because we'll be right back after this break. All right, pause. All right, I'm keeping track of the time. So we got one more 5-minute segment, right? And this is the closing. So this one won't, we won't really have much time because I got a long exit. I got a long exit portion, right?
Right.
So we probably run it for about 2-3 minutes, but just I signal you. All right,
Well,
and here
let's.
we
You
go.
want to close it with a words of wisdom, like, "Hey, Melvin, you explained to me that a lot of times we see paper where we always seeing them on the internet talking about those. That's the answer. It sound right. It's correct. Can you give us a demonstration why you can know the answer, but that doesn't mean you don't necessarily know the solution or how you got the answer? Remember, I
Man, I'm
told
trying
you.
to think. How can I verbalize that, Melvin? Let me see.
Oh, okay. You want to end it? Uh, you might just say, Melvin, what is one of the lessons have you learned since you've been doing these taxes that you think very important? And I would
I'll tell
say
you
just
what. This how I do it. I'll be like, Melvin, is there any insight you can give us with your final words? And that'll open the door, and then you can go into that,
no,
right?
we can go well for the taxes. If it's any insight, and what I would want to say is, I just give them a closing on like they tell us about what to expect during the tax season, when they can expect their return, however you want to do it. It's on
All
you.
right. I'll lead you into it. I got it. All right. Let me wait to the 18. All right. Welcome back to WDRB Media, the voice of the community, and those streaming live through free TuneIn Radio app and through iHeartRadio. You're listening to Versatile Radio, and I'm your host, Carlos Parks. If you're just tuning in, we're discussing tax preparation with Melvin Farmer, right? We don't have much time left in the show, but I want Melvin to get across what he can to the audience, right? So, Melvin, what is it? If what words of wisdom do you have for anybody in this tax season?
Well, I call it practicing poor. POOR acronym.
Okay,
Passing over opportunities repeatedly. You can
okay,
attest to this. How many times we had chances and opportunity, but we made wrong decisions
exactly. Yeah,
in life.
yeah,
So I just want them to know that we believe in education over incarceration, because if we be more educated, we wouldn't do the things that we do. We all make choices, but we all should be given a second chance to come back and redemption and give back to the community. It's my understanding. And it's just, let me see how I could put this, man, so when people understand. It's much more gratifying to be able to tell somebody you worked and earned your money, and you didn't go out and steal it, didn't harm nobody. It's no
yeah.
better stealing. And we can turn and help the community. We're here on inside inner city where this is a community that it's very poor.
Okay.
We don't have they need every penny they get. And the only thing stronger than a man's pride is a mother's love. Too many
Okay.
times we sit and try to impress others. We the only ones that sit and try to pull each other down instead of building each other up. If I can do it, I lead by example. I've never told another man to go and shoot somebody. Leaders are sometimes the best followers when you're a leader. So I lead by example the way as if I could change my life, then I'm quite sure you can go back. I'm 65 years old, did over 30 some years in prison. Quit going to class in the eighth grade, but I'm in school now. So if I can do it, I just try to be an inspiration to others where it ain't from me being tough. I've never read the Bible, only to open it up for when I needed some blank paper, for when I'm in the hole or something, and I want to
Yeah.
smoke a cigarette for, you know what I'm saying? I don't
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
dates.
Hmm.
So I never read the Bible, but I never lost faith, not only in God and me getting out from a life sentence, but I didn't lose faith in my race as a
Yeah.
black. And I know that we should be able to do better. We'll swallow every pill to stay alive, but
Yeah.
we won't swallow our pride. We won't walk away sometime. I know how to walk away. So at
Yeah.
the
That's
end of
that's
the
that's
day,
that's huge right there. That's huge.
yeah,
I
I
like
know
the
how
way you
to
put
walk away and I stay in my own lane. I'm not here for sound bites and likes. I'm here to try to save a young person's life, make it better in our community with the influence that I have and the voice that I have, and to create it to where other voices could be heard. And I appreciate you having me on the show because a lot of times I get blackballed from these other little, which I don't bet on all of them, but
Yeah.
they are one-sided when they conversations, particularly when it's negative stuff. So, the truth can never coexist with a lie.
And we'll talk about that more on the podcast. I appreciate you, and I want to say, like, I don't come from the same world as you, right? I'm on the East Coast, you're on the West Coast, but your name holds a lot of weight, and I appreciate the fact that you are sharing your story and showing how you changed, because a lot of youth look up to you. A lot of youth hear your name and they think about, the origins of what they follow right now. So I appreciate you for being transparent, man, and giving me an opportunity to interview you for my show, man. So we're gonna close out, Melvin. We're gonna close out the radio portion, right? Just thank. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Continue to tune in every Thursday night at 7 p.m. at the God Hour. Please remember to connect with me by going to wdrbmedia.com. Click on the radio shows tab and go to the Versatile radio page. Also, if you want to be a guest on the show, call me at 919-225-0660 or email me at 072 gmail at g 072 cap at gmail.com. You've been listening to Versatile Radio, and I'm your host, Carlos Parks, on WDRB Media, the voice of the community for double the information and inspiration. Remember, we're no one-trick pony. We're versatile. All right, that's a wrap. Well, I appreciate that's a wrap for the radio show. The radio show is only 30 minutes. So this is my thing. We do the radio and we do the podcast all in one take. So
Okay.
now you have a little bit. Now we touched on the tax preparation, right? On the podcast, we talk about the individual. We talk about the people, right? So like I say, we come from different worlds. When I went in '98, and we ain't had no Crips or no Bloods in my city where I'm from. I'm from Lynchburg, Virginia, right? That's where I was raised. And when I came home, they were everywhere. Like my neighborhood was divided. Like some of my little homies that I raised, because I was the big homie from my area, right? But when I came home and my little homies was divided, and I never understood how, right? So I've learned. I've been home now over 7 years, and I learned that as they were going off into these institutions, right, they would get put on at different institutions because the culture just spread out from California all over the United States. It's probably even in other countries now, right? And my
It
first,
is, that's the one thing about Crips and Bloods. They're
yeah,
global. You have
all over the world.
Koreans that's all over, they global. So we have a big influx in the culture as far as the images, but I don't believe
Okay.
that the violence that occurs on the streets, the drug addiction, the horn, the best thing going, selling drugs is from the lyrics of no record or album. We've always had music that represent the conditions of these streets. In the 30s, you had swing music. Then you
Mm-hmm.
had R&B, rock and roll. Now we come with rap, gangster rap, lovers rap. Uh, and I never known it to where I've ever met a man on the streets that say I'm fit to go quit a crime or do this because of a record I heard. Never.
No,
It's
no,
always been,
no.
it's always been the conditions and what occur on the streets. It's always described in the songs
In the
that are
music, yeah.
in the rap.
See, when I was coming up, Melvin, it was different types of music. So I was influenced by the Black Power movement, right? So I listened to, well, most of the rappers in the early 80s were talking about positive messages. Like you
All
think
of
I listened to Public Enemy, Brand Nubian, anybody like the first ones
Lords
was
of
like
the
Houdini.
Underground.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I don't remember any of them, right, talking about what they're talking about in rap right now, right? So when I came up, that's my era. So Run DMC, LL, Houdini, all of the ones, the pioneers, right? Slick Rick, Dana Dane, all they weren't talking about that stuff. As music progressed, right? It progressed and it entered into the gangster rap era. And even when I loved it, right? But it didn't, like you say, it didn't make me, it didn't influence me. I was doing me already, right? Even when I was listening to positive rap, we were still entrenched in the street
yeah,
life.
it's just music. It's
And it
just
comes so
music.
the street life like is not influenced by the music. The music is influenced by the life. That's how I see
Right.
it. Right?
And
Yeah.
we have people with no vested interest because they're a celebrity or have a platform that are talking about issues where they have no vested interest in the community and the things that they talk about. Now, the era that you're talking about when it came to hip hop and all that, that was the East Coast version where you had house party, break dance,
Uh-huh.
spinning on your head, the message by my man Melly Mel. But on
Yeah.
the West Coast, we had gangster rap. We
Y'all
all,
back then?
yeah, I was in the first video that ever was produced. People don't know my history in the rap game. I've been in it since West Coast Rap, Easy, NWA, DOC, Doc when he got hurt. In fact, we used to be with my man Mike Conception, Grand Jury Records, his first 6 years. We were dealing with Telly Riley. This when he had New Jack Scream, Rex and Effects. You
Yeah.
had remember Magoo,
Yeah.
Timberland, and
They're from
Missy
Virginia.
Elliott. They were a trio at this time. Then you
Yeah, they're
had
from
Black Street Avant. But in the early 80s, the late 80s or middle 70s or whatever, we were in the first game video that came out also with Boogie Down Production, Nothing But Self-Destruction. We had made the West Park counterpart. We all in the game. Look at our
I
line.
remember that. I remember that. We all in the same gang. Yeah, I remember that.
Right, that's Michael Conception. We had MC Hammer. We had a young Dr. Dre. We
I
had
remember
King
that.
T. We had Tone Loc. We had Miss Chalet before she was known. You had Jewel before she was known. You had Dr. Dre that dig the beats. You had Young MC. You had
Hmm.
Humpty. You
Yeah,
had a philanthropy, just a whole cast of the heaviest hitters
from
that
the
it
West.
was
I
at
remember.
that time.
Yeah,
So I've been around the hip hop and it changed the game, the images. Then you heard Dirty Rotten Scandals. This is for the homies. to where the images and the contents, these young men were taken
Mhm.
and fitted in to where they image were. They had on the plaid coats, the braided hair, the bandana, but all the time, these were choir members
So that
singing.
wasn't even really them.
No, it wasn't them, and they regret it to this day that the things that they did transpired into what it is today,
Yeah,
as far
exactly.
as the images and everything. Now,
Okay.
that I will say they mimic, they act, they dress, and as far as all that, that's true. But as far as somebody going and committing a crime, drill music, I'm a killer, and this and that, you
Yeah,
make the decision to do that without no money.
exactly. Yeah. And speaking on that, right? So we know your history, right? And you said you mentioned the park where the Crips would kind of birthed, right? Where you guys used to hang out. What was the name of that park?
St. Andrews Park. St. Andrews Park, and then there'd be at Sportsman Park. That's the west side of Los Angeles.
Okay.
When the Crips started in Los Angeles, you had East Side, West Side, Compton Crips, and the Crips that were in Watts, the Jordan Downs, Imperial Courts, and so forth. There was
Gotcha.
no Rolling 60, there was no Eight Trays, there was no Harlem, there was no subdivisions. There only was a unification. So a lot
Okay.
of times, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
So we can put this out here so a lot of people can really learn a lesson.
All right.
What is your interpretation of an OG? What does that mean?
Well, I got two answers, right? Original gangster or old gangster, right? That when I went, that's what an original gangster or old gangster is how we interpret that today.
And
OG,
that's totally wrong
okay.
on how that term even started.
All right. How did it start?
Uh,
Like
let me
what is
let
what
me
is
let
it
me
supposed?
let me show you something right quick about
Okay.
a rap we had before rap come out. That what we used to say, and this in 1972.
Okay.
This
I
is
was born in
72, young
73.
man.
I was born in 73.
Okay, so listen
Okay.
to what I say. You'll
Okay.
hear him say, "I'm from this, I'm from that." Listen to this verse, and this ain't no rapping. This is what we used to chant. I
Okay.
went to the well to get a sip when I was surrounded by gangster crips. Although I'm barely alive to tell this tale, 'cause the gangster crips gave me so much hell. CC don't stand for Compton Crip, it stands for Crazy Crip. I drink my coke, I tell no joke. We kill 'em, you chill 'em, and the mortuary seals. That was at age 15. We were singing that too. And that
Yeah.
chant wasn't made up, but if you could hear it, you don't hear no eight-tray gangster, although you hear the term gangster Crip. But OG
Uh-huh.
stood for original Crip. Crip or blood. You are original from the
Okay.
beginning. At the first, before it broke off in the sets in 1972 summer.
Okay.
In fact, they didn't even start killing till 1972. And it wasn't Tookie, it wasn't Raymond Washington, it wasn't Mac Thomas, it wasn't James Compton, Lil James, Melto. It was the younger ones because
Oh,
of the murder that happened at the Soul Train, the Robert Ballou murder, 1972, when Soul Train. It was three things going on in 1971, 72, 73, 74 in Los Angeles. Soul Train, gang banging, and pop locking. All three of them are staples of America today, to which they still talk about. And so back in those days, gang banging and being a Crip, you was on the statics of a Dr. Dre, a LeBron James. You're talking about men, high profile men, the Clark Gables of this game. But that
okay.
doesn't necessarily mean that these guys were killers. Or they might have been bullies, they might have been fighters. It was the younger ones that lacked a sense of direction, uh, because they had took out the Black Panthers. They had infiltrated them, not the Crips. A lot of people, oh, they infiltrated them and had them. No, they infiltrated the Black Panthers, the organizations. So when the George Jackson, the Fleety Drumgos, the Hugo Pinells, the Geronimo Pratts, the Angela Davis, uh, 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 just a whole gang of them that were Black Panthers, Eldridge Cleaver, and all these type of guys. So we didn't look at it at 13, 14 as being pro-Black. We didn't care nothing about a revolution. We didn't care nothing about passing out lunches or a daycare. We were too young. We were naive. And we got out the game to where we started progressing into other criminal acts, robbing banks, ice cream trucks, the armored trucks. So we get the blame for a lot of things to where you will see now, to where you would think that apply to us, and it doesn't. And so that's one of the things that I like to correct. The OG don't stand for original gangster. That's what they turned the terminology into. But that's basically to make those, say, like from Lynchburg, Virginia, back east that doesn't know the Laker, that'll make you think that guys that say I'm an OG, that they are OG from the beginning as far as Crips and Bloods. Anybody could be a gangster, but the term OG started with original. Original. OG stood for original, and the C stood for Crip, and that's how they did that.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate that insight, man, because that's a term just used a lot looser than it's supposed to be. Everybody wants that, you know. I came home and guys were OGs who was soft as cotton when I was growing up. And I came home like, how does this
And they
individual
look at it like you, that what make you OG is your age. No. That ain't how they go. They need, in fact, they had a movie, a black exploitation movie with football player Fred Williamson.
I saw
That's, and remember Original Gangster? That
I
was
used to
the
watch
name
all
of the
those
movie.
movies.
So they take that OG like I'm original gangster. But when it comes to gang activity, OG means you original Crip or somewhere in that nature, or Blood, that were pretty much there from the conception and the crystallization of what we have forming on going on today.
Okay. All right, got you. Yeah, and as I see it today, right? When I was in Beaumont, Texas, there was so many Crips on the yard, right? First of all, Texas is a majority Crip state. Like to be a Blood in Texas, man, you got to have like big balls, right? So when I was in Beaumont, it was just like so many Crips did the Crips just beefed with each other. They didn't like the Bloods didn't even exist. The Crips just it seemed like they just wanted that work, right? They didn't care. So that because they was really nobody there to beef with, you got the 60s beefing with the Hoovers, the Texas Crips beefing with the Cali Crips. It was just so much division there, right? And
But
being,
that's
from
what happens when you expand and you break off into little cliques now. Everything's a clique. And then you have to remember, it doesn't take much to say you a Crip or a Blood now. You can be a rapper. Oh, I'm a Crip, I'm a Blood. You could be an athlete. They claim Crips and Bloods. You can be an entertainer. They claim, I won't just say Clips and Bloods, because you have them where they claim GDs, Gangster Disciple, Vice Lords, Mexican Mafias, or whatever. But the one thing about a lot of these guys now, when we came into the game, we couldn't come in talking about we a rapper, or we a actor, or I'm a drug dealer, or this and that. It only was one way to come in. So you have to distinguish the difference between a gang member and a bona fide gang banger. You can be a pacifier to where you understand the struggle, you understand what's going on because you grew up in that community and witnessed it and know the people and you stayed out the way. But by the same token, uh, you don't get in and you can't recognize what's going on, but you don't participate in the actual killing, the violence that come associated with this game. And then we'll hear people talking about, oh, I'm gonna kill this. I've never heard so much disrespect and disregard for human life and irresponsibility than I do on the internet, to where now everybody got a beef. And there's really not no beefs on the internet because there's not been no bloodshed between those that are actually involved. So it's really not no beef. It's just a verbal gymnastic. To me, a lot of shows are for sound bites and likes, and they're not really here to save a life. Because what I learned, you can spill water and you can wipe it up, and it leaves no stain. We have 50 years of violence. In fact, this is the 50th anniversary of actual murders that started, even though the Crips were founded in 69. They were dormant until the Robert Ballou murder happened, which was April 1972, which I knew about and seen. I was 14 then. And about 15 in May, a couple months later, the mayor of Inglewood's brother got killed. Rest in peace, Douglas Green. And he didn't listen. I had got him a pad. So the images that we see today and those that are in there, a lot of times they are transpired and they ruin, present an image of those that were here at the beginning, when in fact, the majority of guys that I know, they were naive, they're remorseful.
Okay.
I would use the word remorseful for the things they did. But let me tell you, you probably know, it comes a time when you realize you think you're only hurting yourself.
Mm.
You got that camaraderie ship when you go to jail, you buddy up. It's sometimes better to be in jail. You're away from the press, the stress, not sleeping in a bed where your brother peeing. You're getting a meal every day. You're getting schooling if you're a juvenile and things of this nature. But at the end of the day, you know what hurted me the most? And a lot of men I know that's built to do time. You know what they all said?
Your mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Am I right or wrong, bro?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right.
You look in your mother, tell me if I'm wrong. You look in your mother's eyes and you see the wrinkles, and as she get older, and you think like me. I did 31 years in prison for nothing, representing something for nothing. And look at my mama now. Old, hurting, had a son. I'm my only son. She's never not been there for me. And I'm looking at the hurt in my mother's eyes.
Mm.
And that's the settling feeling, man, to where, oh, man, I dragged my mother through the mud.
Wow.
It's all right to go and do what you do in the streets, but do what your mama say. Because if I'd have listened to my mother instead of Negroes, which I never really did, it's just that I put my all into what I was doing at that time. Because, you know, you think your ass will last longer than that prison wall. When you're really in the wrong way, you'll find out that fence will last longer than your ass.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's one of the things that makes me and inspire me to do better, because I hurt my mom. I have nobody else to blame but myself. And, you know, when I first went to jail, the first time I was about 14, and my mother just cried. And I'm getting out the next few days, but she cried. And I told my mom, when you do the crime, you got to do the time. And that's always been my thing in life. If you do the crime, you got to do the time. There's no saying I didn't, you know. So I don't use excuses to try to be successful and say, oh, I did. No, I did it. I admitted it. Now, what am I going to do to make it better, to where somebody doesn't come down and follow the path that I went to put their parents through, or end up in a graveyard, or end up behind the walls, of imprisonment and slavery. I'm gonna try to see what I can do to have my message help a young man, not lock them up, not hinder them, not influence them, not enable them. I'm just live by example.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it's been an honor to talk to you, man. I look forward to a part two to this, man. And you know, like you, man, I felt like I owed it to not only my mother but to my community because I had done enough harm, right? And I feel like it's time to use our influence to help, right? To help these young brothers. I see myself in a lot of them, and they respect it coming from you. They respect it coming from me. They respect it coming from individuals who went through the fire, right, and came out. Like you are a anomaly, right? Because starting in the life you were in at the age you were at, a lot of the guys you grew up with probably didn't make it, right? Because the bloodshed increased. Then they were just locking up. California, what they had horrible. I think that's where the three strikes started, and man, to
I
survive
was
that,
one of the first ones. And speaking of three strikes, not to cut you,
yeah.
go and read my book, The New Slave Ship, Three Strikes You In, a ship that does not sail. Three
Where can
strikes
we
you in.
find it?
Well, on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any of them. It's been out since when I first got out. It's the story of this new industry that we call prison industrial complex, and how it
Okay.
started the three strikes law to where they realized tough on crime and locking people up garnered votes. I was one of the first ones to get a three strikes, which is the only law in America that's retroactive that adversely affect you. So I got caught for $2 worth of drugs that was found in somebody's house, and I got 35 years to life.
Mm,
I
mm,
wouldn't
mm.
be out now, but I got a reversal because they planted that on me and it framed me. So,
Mm.
yeah, that's a ship that does not sail. The new
A ship
slave
that
ship,
doesn't
three
sail.
strikes you in, not out. And
Okay.
we try to do that. And also, I've written initiative legislation, voter registration, where we wrote a initiative in 2000 addressing the three strikes law. There's still a lot of young men in there doing time with 100 years because you get 25 years per charge. To where we're still trying to overturn the law to get these young men, women, and children out of our California prison system, because we have more people locked up under the three strikes law than the other 33 states, which have them combined. And there's
Wow.
a reason for that. That's because we're the only state that's retroactive that go backwards. So for the things I did in 1974, 77, 81, and all those, I had priors, which made me have strikes to where a normal citizen wouldn't have no strikes. So I didn't get three strikes. It was one and done. So we are trying to overturn that in restorative justice as we
So
speak.
so I got one more thing that I want to touch on, and then we're gonna close out. But I just want to know, did Kamala Harris have anything to do with your sentencing? Because she was a prosecutor in LA, right?
No, she was a prosecutor. No, she was the state's attorney general or something like that. No,
Mm.
she had nothing to do with it. In fact, to show you how crazy this law was, it was signed overnight in 1994 as the emergency merger, to where the governor just signed it on a piece of paper that say it's the emergency law that we need behind Mike Reynolds, a white man whose daughter got killed, who had got slain by some prior ex-white felons. So he created a law where he didn't get no traction. And then a murder happened in Petaluma, to where a young girl, they took her face where she had been kidnapped and put it on the three strikes. And they started using the girl as a face for the three strikes when actually it was an older woman. And they used the sympathy. Polly Kloss is her name. Polly Klaus had nothing to do with it. And then actress from Petaluma, California, she took up the cause, made it, and they started the tough on crime. But the majority of those that are incarcerated are Black and Latinos up under this law.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah,
I
we're
will.
12%, but we're at like 35, 40% of the prison population here in
Population.
California.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you again, Melvin, for coming in and sharing so much with us and being transparent, man. I look forward to talking to you in the future. I appreciate you. Thank you, man. It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you for having me.
All right. I'm going to end it.